Alright troops, welcome to episode 43 of the Untitled Hack podcast. I'm your man Chris Scullion. This is a video podcast for the first time in a wee while for reasons that will become obvious fairly quickly. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you like what you hear, there's a whole load of audio podcasts that you've missed out on and you can catch up on by either visiting titledhack.com, where there'll be a link to the podcast, or just going to your favourite podcast service and just searching Untitled Hack. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, all your usual podcast shenanigans. This one is a special video one, like I say, because there's a Zoom interview involved. You may be aware of the Amico, a new console that's coming out from Intellivision next year. And I've had my eye on it for a wee while, and it looks quite interesting because it's promising lots of different stuff that from what the other consoles are kind of promising just now. Like more focus on family-friendly gaming and multiplayer gaming and cheap games and all this kind of stuff. So I decided to get in touch with Tommy Tallarico, who's the president of Intellivision, and we've kind of spoken once or twice in the past. I did a video a long time ago when I was at Official Nintendo magazine. It must have been like 13 years ago I made this video, and it was just like a montage of my favourite games, and he got in touch and asked to show it during his video game live concerts, which, as far as he tells me in the Zoom interview here, to this day is still being shown, which is pretty cool. And there was also kind of a bit of some controversial goings on last year, if anyone kind of followed me then, regarding Earthworm Jim and the guy who made it, but that's for another time. The point is, I got in touch with Tommy and said, look, you probably remember this, and he did. But we kind of both agreed, look, let's just, that's his pal that it was involved with. It's nothing to do with Tommy. So I said, look, I'll not mention Earthworm Jim if let's just not talk about it. So that aside, we're talking Amico today, nothing like that. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. And yeah, like I say, this won't always be a video podcast. It's not like going forward it's going to be a video podcast now. It's very much an audio podcast. But for special situations like this where there's video interviews involved, then it's only fair that you get to see the full thing. So hopefully you enjoy. And yeah, here we go. Without further ado, here's my interview with Tommy Tallarico. Okay, my guest today is a veteran of the video games industry. He's already reacting. He's been a video game composer since the early 90s, responsible for the likes of Cool Spot, Aladdin, Earthworm Jim, not to mention the very underrated soundtrack for the Mega CD version of the Terminator, which was fantastic. In the early 2000s, he formed Video Games Live, a fantastic series of video game concerts, many of which I've attended. And then in 2018, he decided to move from music to console production, I suppose you could call it, becoming the president of Intellivision Entertainment, and is now currently working on the Amico, which I believe is now due on the 15th of April.
April 15th, yeah.
Pending any second wave pandemic situations. So I'm delighted to be joined by Tommy Tallarico today. Hello, Tommy.
Well, thanks so much, Chris, for having me. And I remember I'm trying to think how it came about. If I reached out to you or you reached out to me, maybe you could jog my memory. But what I know is you had put together this amazing video of all your favorite childhood memories from video games, and it was mostly from the from this. I think it was mostly from the 16-bit era, SNES and Genesis. Maybe there's a couple NES stuff in there too, maybe, but
that's right.
Mostly SNES and Genesis stuff, and or Mega Drive, as you call it over there,
absolutely.
in Europe. And you had created this amazing video, and I loved it so much that I would actually play that video. And by the way, still to this day, 20 years later, would play this video, your video, right at the beginning of every single Video Games Live show. And it's so great because the audience, every time a new game comes up, yay, like they'll always cheer, they'll cheer. So it's just such a great thing to start to get the audience going before we get on stage or whatever. And right at the end, it always says, video by, thanks for the memories, video by Chris Scullion. So that's how I remember you. And
what I find interesting, sorry, is I see, because obviously at the Video Games Live concerts, you encourage people using their cell phones to record performances
Yeah.
and stuff. So on odd occasions, people will actually record the intermissions and those kind of pre and
And you'll see
mid
it.
things, and I'll see it, and it'll be interesting to watch because different audiences from different countries react in different ways to certain games.
Completely. Brazil
like,
is completely different from
I was going to say,
Scotland.
because Brazil,
Yeah.
there was one recorded in Rio, I think.
Yeah.
And when the soccer games appeared, people were losing their mind. But then you watch them in like America, and everyone's just like,
"Who cares about soccer?" Yeah. What's that soccer game? And then, of course, I remember meeting you, though. I remember meeting you in Scotland.
Very briefly,
in Scotland, I think it was right before the show started, or maybe right out, or something.
Yeah, I was there, my brother. You were going in, and just as I was going in, but obviously you had far more going on. And I tried to I said I would catch you after it, but then we had a train to miss, to catch. So I did.
Yeah, but I remember you saying, like, I'm the guy who does the video. What? Oh my God! Yes. Well, you're going to see it tonight where did we play the?
That was
in
Glasgow. That was the
national
the concert hall. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we played with the Scottish National Symphony, which were amazing. That was a great night. I remember, of course, I always remember Scotland because when I go on stage, I always do the jokes about the tablet. You know, that's for people who don't know, not from Scotland. Tablet is basically like maple syrup sugar block.
Yeah, just pure sugar. Yeah,
it's pure. It's just a pure. It's pure diabetes. Is diabetes in a 1-inch square, and then their big one of their big local drinks is called Iron Brew. It's spelled IR. There it is. IRN. And the tagline is it's as tough as girders.
Yeah,
right. That's the tagline. And that for folks in America, if you remember Jolt Cola, again, you know. 400 grams of sugar, whatever. That's kind of what Iron Brew is like. Yeah. And so Iron Brew and tablets. So they're all jacked up on sugar and adrenaline in Scotland, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. We're maniacs, basically. Now, obviously we're here today to talk about Amico, and maybe one day in the future, it'd be nice to get you on again to talk about your career in general. But obviously at the moment, the pressing matters and Amico's the big news at the moment. If it's okay, could you tell me about Intellivision in general first? Because obviously it was a kind of big name in America. It was a kind of household name in America, but in the UK, it took a number of years before the Intellivision launched here. And by the time it came out here, we'd had the Atari 2600. And we were starting to get the early days of the ZX81 and all their kind of home computers, which really took off in Europe. So when Intellivision came out here, it maybe didn't take off as well as it could have.
Right.
So to a lot of people in the UK, although in the US it's a household name and a lot of people have fond memories of it, to some people,
not a lot.
It's fairly new to them. I mean, for me, I obviously I didn't have it as grown up as a child, but I caught up over the years with stuff like Intellivision Lives on the PS2 and stuff like that.
Right.
I caught up with it in that way. Which was a weird one because it was set in an arcade, even though it was a home system. But could you tell us a bit about what Intellivision means to you?
So Intellivision started. So Atari came out in 1977. That's when it hit the market, and Mattel. Which, the huge toy company, Barbie, Hot Wheels. Yeah. Mattel said, well, we got to get in on some of this because they saw how well Atari was doing. And they had an electronics division, Mattel Electronics. And some of the big things, I don't know if it was popular over there in Europe, but the huge things in the US in the late 70s were the little Mattel Electronics handheld games. They had a football, a baseball. Football was the biggest. Yeah. Then they did a baseball. Then they did a basketball and a hockey. And I don't know if they ever did a soccer one. I'll have to check into that.
They're kind of like predecessors to the Game & Watch in a sense.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, with the little tiny LED, the little red lights blipping around. And so they had that division start to look into do a home console, and that's who they came up with Intellivision. Intellivision was released in 1979, Christmas of '79, and by the early '80s, Intellivision owned 20% of the entire home video game market. And they were making $500 million a year And that's back in the early 80s. So that's
Yeah.
about the equivalent of $1.4 billion today. They had 1,800 employees worldwide. And when you think about like 20% of the market, that's basically what the Xbox is now.
Mhm.
You know, if you look at, current systems,
Yeah, definitely.
And so we were kind of like the Xbox of the late 70s, early 80s. And then, of course, the industry went through a big adjustment, mostly in the United States. Some people call it the crash of 83. But, things were still humming along in Japan. Things weren't so horrible in Europe and South America. You're doing okay. So really when people refer to the crash of 83 or 84, it's kind of an unfair term because in America, they were coming out with new systems every year. Like, because again, this was all brand new. Home consoles and things were all brand new. Now you have the 7-year cycle. It's very typical to have, when's the next Xbox coming out? When PlayStation 5 is coming out this year. Great. And it's 2020. Great. In 2027, that's when PlayStation 6 will come out. Right. I mean, you just, it's kind of like, knowledge now. But back then it was like, let's come out with the Atari 2600. Okay. Let's come out with the 5200. Okay. Let's come out with the 7800. Oh, okay. How about the Atari computer? Let's do the 400, the 800, and it was just like every year. And then of course, shovelware galore, and so that kind of helped you really crash the industry. But Intellivision has an interesting story in that in 1983, Mattel was like, okay, we're seeing our things plummet. We're gonna sell the company. We're gonna sell the company because remember, Atari had just sold their company to Warner Brothers. Warner came in. They said we're gonna buy it from from Nolan, and so Mattel was like, okay, we're gonna sell to somebody, right? Well, 5 of the employees, the original employees from Intellivision, said, wait, hold on a second. Don't just sell it to some movie studio or some conglomerate or whatever. We helped to build this company. We'd like to keep it going. And Mattel's like, well, we love this sentiment, but you need to come up with the cash, right? And so these folks went out and they raised over $25 million. Again, this is 1983, going into 84. That's a hell of a lot of money, right? And so, it's again about the equivalent of $100 million, and they did it, and thankfully they did, because we probably wouldn't be talking here today about this if they didn't. And they kept the company going. They were selling the hardware still. They were doing new games, and they sold that Intellivision all the way up to 1990. So Intellivision is the only video game console where it sold the same exact system over 3 decades. That's from crazy. 79 to 1990. So we just butt ended the ends of each decade. But again, 3 decades, facts are facts, right? But for 12 years, the cycle went on. And Intellivision had so many firsts. They had done so many firsts in the video game industry that, like, people nowadays just take for granted. They were the very first company to ever license professional sports. So MLB, Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA. Back then they had they did soccer, but it wasn't FIFA. It was the American Football League, or it was something.
Some of the MLS equivalent would have been back then,
and but everything from like the official chess and backgammon organizations to like skiing and bowling, PBA and PGA golf and all these things. That was one thing. They were also the very first to have a subscription service. In 1982, you could buy a box called the Play Cable that went into the bigger system, and for $12 a month, you could download any video game from Intellivision through your cable box. You'd hook up your cable into the back of it. Again, completely revolutionary. No one did anything like that till 20 years later. And as far as game designs go, well, Major League Baseball was also the very first video game to ever have spoken voice. The umpire would say, "You're out." They were the very first to do like what's considered now to be like God games, things like Sim City and this and that. We had a game called Utopia, where you manage your island and you had to feed your people and build up your buildings. Nothing had ever been done like that. And on and on and on. And in fact, if you go to our website, IntellivisionAmico.com, we have a legacy. You can, if you click the legacy thing, it shows like 20 of our biggest and best things that kind of Intellivision did first. And we're proud of that. We're proud of that. Oh, one of the other big things was it was also the first controller to ever go to a D-pad style, because everything else was either joysticks or switches or turny paddle things like you'd see on Pong and stuff. We were the first ones to have a directional pad, and ours was a 16 directions it could go, and it was that disc. And even with the new controller, this is the the new controller, because we hold the patent on it as well, but you can still see that the disc, you have to push it down to but ours, let me see, I'll show you really quick. I can show you that ours has 64 points of articulation. Nice. And you don't need 64 points to play Pac-Man. Nice Pac-Man's up, down, left, and right. But but if you wanted something like an Echo the Dolphin game or our skiing game where you really wanted to get really nice, or a driving game, the 64 points come in really handy. But
it's almost like a cross between a D-pad and an analog stick then.
Exactly. Well, the other great thing, Chris, I'm glad you mentioned that too, is that you'll notice the harder I press down, see that green thing on top? That's how hard I'm pressing down. Okay. So you'll see the harder I press
so it's got
down,
sensitivity.
So it has, different points of pressure as well. So again, when you're skiing and you need to go that little extra, you push down a little harder and the skier crouches and goes even faster.
That kind of builds on the kind of family kind of aspect of it, because I remember, especially when you have players who maybe aren't so familiar with video games and don't play them a lot. I remember back in the day when my mum used to play Super Mario Bros. And she'd hold the controller and she'd jump like that every time Mario jumped. Or when people play racing games like on the normal controller and they'll turn like that. Yeah. So in a sense, that actually helps them, because if they're pressing really hard, then they're actually potentially getting a benefit from it instead of just looking daft.
Exactly. And, not only do we have, the discs all around light up and the buttons light up. And by the way, we use that for gameplay as well. So it's not just, it's a fancy thing, but, certain games where it says where everybody has to cut a wire in Bomb Squad, and you all have to cut the green wire. And so that on the screen, it says, okay, push the green button all at the same time. And then everybody's button is but some person's button, this one might be green, and another controller might have this one green. So it's not just, everybody hit the button, or the disc might have a certain color green down in this area. Yeah. Okay, on the count of 3, we all have to cut the green button. Now, we have to do it at the same time. Are you 1, 2, 3, go. Oh no, it was supposed to go on go, not on 1. Shit. And you blow up. So these kinds of fun couch co-op things. Yeah. We have a speaker, a microphone, force feedback, wireless, contact charging, and gyroscope and an accelerometer. So, you can see the ball kind of moving around there. This is our little test thing that we have. And then, of course, the color touchscreen, and it's a capacitive touchscreen, just like you'd see on your mobile device. And this here, because most mobile devices, you drop it and this breaks, right? And so we went with a polycarbonate, which is really, really nice, high end, low scratch, and very, very tough. So it's really unique controllers. But so to finish the Intellivision story, when 1990 hit, of course, now you had the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo out in the market.
Yeah.
So they kind of like went away, kept it, kept it around or whatever. But it wasn't really until 1996, 6 years later, when now all of a sudden Intellivision and Atari were considered retro. And like you said, Intellivision lives, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, Nintendo DS. They started doing Intellivision greatest hits kind of things and putting them out on all those consoles from the mid to late 90s. And then they were doing t-shirt deals as well, doing things with the logo. Again, smaller type stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, if you ever watch Big Bang Theory, Sheldon Cooper wears a couple of Intellivision t-shirts in some of those episodes. And then Intellivision was always my system growing up. It was my favorite system. I loved it. It was the one that me and my family played together. And so I was always friends with those guys. I'd gotten in the industry in the late 80s, early 90s. So, from 90 to 96, I really didn't know them. But then when they came back, I was friends with those guys, and we covered them on my TV show and Electric Playground, and we did a whole bunch of things with them. And I became very close friends with Keith Robinson, who was the president, and he started at Intellivision in 1980, and the other guys in 81. Yeah. And unfortunately, and we had talked, me and Keith had always talked about, because he knew I was a good business guy, and I knew a lot of people in the industry, and he says, hey, you love Intellivision so much. Do you want to do something together with Intellivision? Maybe you could be an investor or help us out with the marketing stuff or do some business. So we'd always talked about it. And then, of course, I'm always off running around the world with Video Games Live. So it's like we'd see each other at a convention, you bring it up, and then we'd forget about it. And then we'd see each other 3 months later, we got to do something. And then, unfortunately, he passed away in 2017, a heart attack suddenly. And I approached the other folks and I said, my gosh, what's going to happen to the company now? And they knew that he would always talk about me, being a part of it. And I said, look, I have a vision. I see this huge gaping hole in the video game industry where you have PC at the top of the complexity list. Yeah. And then you have PlayStation and Xbox, and again, that's expensive and it's complex to the average person. And then you have Nintendo under that, right? Which is more, outreach to, younger kids and, less complex. The graphics aren't as intense and this and that. And then, so you have PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, and then way down here, you have the hyper casual crowd, which is all on mobile, right? And they're playing Angry Birds and Candy Crush, right? But there's that huge gap between Angry Birds and the casual experiences like Overcooked on the Switch, because to us gamers, Overcooked is a casual game. To my wife,
my wife won't play it.
She won't play it because it's too fast and it's too complicated, and she's like, why do I want to wash dishes and cook? I don't like to do that in real life. Why would I do it in a video game? I'm like, shit, good point. And so there's this massive gap between mobile and that. And that's kind of where we live. We want to be in between, because the problem we see with mobile is that, yes, all the hyper casual games are there. By the way, there's 200 million hardcore gamers in the world. That's if you add up PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. 200 million people. 2.5 billion people play this every day, right? So, and 3 billion if you include people who play solitaire on their laptop and stuff, right? So in other things that aren't mobile, casual, hyper casual. Yeah. So think about that, Chris. That means that less than 7% of the people who play video games are playing on home consoles or PCs.
Mm-hmm.
From a dollar and cent standpoint, mobile is 150, the video game industry overall last year was $150 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
55% of that came from mobile. 25% of that comes from home consoles, the top big three, and 20% of that comes from PC.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those numbers vary from year to year, but that's kind of general. So that means that this is doing almost 3 times the amount that PC gamers done in regards to dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And it doubles what consoles do. And every year it gains another 1 to 2% on those other things. So even though the industry is growing overall, so less people aren't playing console games. Console games keep creeping up.
Yeah.
But the amount of percentage in the market that people are spending on, it's been going up rapidly for the last 8 years and continues to do so. So, but what's the problem with this? Well, this sucks as a controller. Like try to play Pac-Man on this. It's like, again, up, down, left, and right, the simplest thing. Your fingers in the middle of the screen. You can't control them very well. The second problem is that there's zero curation. So you have 1,000 to 2,000 games every week being released across iOS and Android. The third problem is that everything wants to take your money, right? Games are designed around how can they suck as much money out of you as possible, right? And if they don't get your email address or your credit card or your friends list on Facebook, then you're going to get a 30-second ad every 3 minutes. That's about the average, right? So that sucks. And then the fourth thing, and this is the biggest one, think about this, Chris. Every single hyper-casual game in the world is on mobile, right? And every single one of them is solitary, is single player, like you looking at your phone. Now, you can play online with other people, and a lot of times they fake it. They're actually not even really. They just say you're playing.
You're just playing AI,
You're just playing AI, but they make it like they take a Facebook page of somebody's profile or whatever. But that's very important. So Candy Crush, there's not a family of 4 that can play a hyper casual game in their living room. It doesn't exist on mobile. Now, there's a couple of games like Jackbox, right? Jackbox is a great example of everybody has a phone and there's a main screen. So they're the exception. But again, when there's 10 million games on mobile and you can mention one franchise out of 10 million. And again, there's another one, there's Space Team, which is a great one. So there's a handful, but it's the overwhelming majority are all, like that. So that's where we go, is that, you know what? We want to bring people together no matter what your skill level. All of those great sensibilities that me and you love growing up, all of those games in that video you made with video, that we show in Video Games Live, they all had something in common for the most part. They were simple to play. They were easy to pick up. You didn't need to read a 40-page manual. You didn't have to go online. They weren't trying to suck money out of you. You could turn the thing on and play it instantly. You didn't have to wait for a 30-minute firmware update. You didn't, this and that. And so we want to take all of those sensibilities from that era, from the 80s and early 90s. Let's take all those sensibilities, those gameplay and those game design sensibilities. Let's bring that into the 21st century. Let's open it up for everyone. Let's use all the new technology that we can, and incorporate it in something really unique where everybody has a screen on their controller and they're looking at a TV. And let's make every single one of our games have multiplayer as well as single player. So every game has single player, but also every player either has a co-op or a versus mode of some kind. And every game is under $10, $9.99 or less US. And we don't allow violence bad language, sexual content. So let's truly make it family friendly so that parents don't have to go in and try to figure out how to set parental controls. You know what? They never even have to worry about it, right? Yeah. And so we're trying to create kind of like the Disneyland of game consoles. Maybe that would be a good comparison. So, So that's kind of the history of Intellivision and where we're at now. That's a long answer to one question.
You're making my job really easy.
You can't stop me. Once I get going, you can't stop me.
I suppose one of the questions, I mean, people would go crazy if I didn't then follow up with this, is that obviously the mobile market is enormous, but how do you convince those people to move on to a console essentially when like you say, so few people are kind of dabbled in the console.
It's a great question. So we've done a lot of market research, and there's already market research that's already out there, what people like about mobile, what they don't like, right? All of the things they don't like about mobile were all of the things I just mentioned that we're handling, right? They don't like that it's solitary. You know, it's like, gosh, I wish I could play Candy Crush with my husband. Like, a wife would say, I wish I could play with my husband or my significant other, whatever, you know, and I wish I could play with my kids. And cause like, I don't get this Fortnite thing and my, you know, and you'll see like 4 people in a room, you know, mom, dad, and 2 kids. Right. Yeah. And the dad is on YouTube or checking his stocks on his phone. Mom is on Instagram or playing Candy Crush. Yeah. The teenage daughter's on TikTok and Instagram, and the little kids playing Roblox, or the little brother's playing Roblox or Minecraft or Fortnite or whatever. So you have 4 people in a room, all playing video games or, you know, interactive entertainment, but none of them are doing it together. Yeah, because they're not compatible. And it's just this. Technology has been splitting families apart. And at Intellivision, our whole goal and mission is, let's use technology to bring people together. Now, I'll mention to you as well, you say, well, again, your question, how do you get those mobile people to get on there? Yeah. Well, here's the thing. What happened with the Wii? The Wii has already proved that people who don't consider themselves gamers will spend money on a video game. My mom bought a Wii, right? I'm sure you know a whole bunch of people
yeah,
that bought a Wii, that never bought a PlayStation or Xbox and hadn't played video games since college when they were playing Donkey Kong and Pac-Man or whatever, right? Definitely. That was my mom, right? And so, but why did she buy a Wii? Because she could do this with bowling.
Because she saw Wii Sports,
That was it. It was bowling. It wasn't even Wii Sports. She didn't like the baseball and the fighting. A little bit of tennis, but it was all the bowling for her. Bowling, and she got her friends to come over and play together, and they'd drink wine, and they'd go bowling, and it became a thing. Nursing homes were playing video games. Who would have thought? It even took Nintendo by surprise. They didn't even, right? And so no one has ever followed up with that. I know many families personally, and we get letters all the time where they still have their Wii hooked up, and the Wii's offline now. You can't buy anything, you know. And wasn't it interesting when Ubisoft did their latest Just Dance game? As a goof, they kind of put it out on the Wii, last year, and guess what? It sold more copies on the Wii than any other platform, all the new ones. So it's like, again, what does that tell you? It tells you that families and people, I keep saying families, but even like, you know, even if you don't have a family, but you love to have your friends come over and play together. Remember, Chris, and let me go out on a limb here and assume something, but you tell me.
Okay.
If you remember your fondest video game memories ever in your life, I guarantee, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guarantee they were probably when you were with a group of people. That was probably your fondest. Maybe it was Bomberman. Maybe it was GoldenEye on the N64. Maybe it was Halo LAN parties. Maybe it was, you know, Street Fighter or whatever. Would that be an accurate statement that your fondest?
Yeah, that's fair.
What were some of yours?
Obviously, being from the UK, a lot of them were soccer related.
Soccer.
So there's a lot. Also playing a lot with my brother. My brother and
Sensible
I
soccer. What were you on?
Sensible
back then?
Soccer, FIFA, International Superstar Soccer, the occasional game of Mario Kart, Streets of Rage 2.
Mario Kart.
So Turtles in Time and the SNES. So yeah, lots of kind of.
Now let me ask you: your brother, is he older, younger?
3 years younger.
He's 3 years younger than you. And when was the last time you played in a room together with your brother?
Not since. Must have been well over a decade ago.
A decade ago. Now let me ask you, Chris, would you like to play video games in a room again with your brother?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we want to offer with Amico. That's the big differentiator. That's what we want to do. We want you and your brother to have a reason to come together and have that fun. And maybe your brother doesn't play video games anymore. Maybe it's passed him on, or maybe, whatever. Like we're saying that people, you don't even have to, no matter what your skill level, people should be able to come together, pick it up, play it right away, and be into it. And maybe because you're like a professional, in the industry and a writer and maybe you'll slaughter him in any game you play him because you're such a gamer. Maybe he's not anymore. Yeah. Well, that sucks too. And that's why with Amico, the way we design the games and our approach to design is, you know what? Let's not let Chris's brother feel left out. In fact, he should be able to beat Chris the first time he picks up the controller, so that's our whole philosophy.
Is this the Karma engine then? Is that
the Karma? We call it the Karma gaming engine. It's not really an engine, it's a philosophy. It's like blast processing on the Mega Drive, right? But yeah, it's just our philosophy of, and again, it's not just like rubber band gaming like you see in Mario Kart. Oh, whoever's in last goes quicker. It's not that. It's more of a different approach. Like, I'll give you an example. We have a popular old school Intellivision game called Shark. The kids love it. They, and females love the game as well. Women all over the world love this game. And you're just a little fish, and you have to eat fish that are smaller than you, and you have to avoid the ones that are bigger than you. And the more fish you eat, the bigger you get. And everybody can eat each other as well if you're bigger than them. So that's where the fun comes in. But but on each screen we have three like either clams or treasure chests, and they're different colors or whatever. So to give you an example of how unique everything is on Intellivision, whoever's in last place, their controller will buzz. No one else will buzz, but their controller will buzz. And if they look down on their screen, it says what color, it shows you the clam or the treasure chest, the shape of it and the color of it, that's on screen. It shows it to you right on your controller. Right. And so again, that person in last place, they're just like minding their own business, just going over there, and they get a slight advantage because when that thing opens up and they get a jewel or a pearl or something that, that now grows them bigger. Or in Pong, let's say your brother came over and he hasn't played Pong, and you've been playing Pong on Amico for 6 months. So literally in a typical video game situation, you would have 0% chance of beating him. Zero, right? I mean, sorry, he would have 0% chance of beating you because you played it and you know all the tricks and everything. Well, in Amico's version of Pong, and this is true, our Karma gaming engine, if you score 3 times in a row on him, your paddle starts to grow. His paddle starts to grow and yours starts to shrink. So it's kind of like this real-time on-the-fly handicapping system. So if my mom really sucks, her paddle might be half the screen and mine might be like one size bigger than the ball itself, right? But I'm challenged.
That's the thing.
Challenged, and I don't feel like, oh, my mom's cheating, because she, that's where her level is, and I'm having good fun, because it's no fun just beating the hell out of my mom every time. That's not fun for me, right? And so these are some of the things where that kind of comes together.
Yeah, that's cool. Can we talk about the kind of the pillars of gaming that you were talking about, the kind of 5 different styles of games. Because I remember,
Yeah.
I think it was about a year ago, and you did an interview with VentureBeat, was it? With Dean Takahashi, I think you did an interview with him.
Dean's great.
And at the time there were
4.
like 4 4-pronged approach. Another 5, and I know what happened was educational games were kind of
that was the 5th one, yeah,
and they were originally kind of mentioned in amongst the kind of casual board game type ones, and
right.
It seems to have kind of expanded to become something.
And then we expanded it out because what we found, Chris, and I'll go over the 5. Let me go over the 5 categories.
Yeah, please.
So it's original IPs, meaning stuff that are completely unique. The Bomb Squad games, some of the other other games that are completely unique that no one's ever seen or heard of yet, and we haven't even mentioned half of, not even 80% of those games. We haven't even mentioned them yet. So there's original IP. There's what I call retro reimagined. So we went out and got all the Atari licenses. Of course, we have the old Intellivision stuff that we own. Things like Moon Patrol and Burger Time and, Frogger and all these kind of things, right? And we're doing retro reimagined versions of them. Then there's sports and recreation. So not only MLB and soccer and all these things, but also recreational sports like skiing and darts and pool and cornhole, or beanbag tosses, they call it in different parts of the world. Shuffleboard and bocce and things like that. So sports and recreation. And again, and then casual, which kind of falls under board games, card games, and dice games. Those were our original 4. And I was kind of like, let's put the kids' games under casual. But then, we did a lot of research and we found that moms and parents and people who didn't normally you would think ever buy a video game, again, that we audience, if you will, and the 3 billion people that play this every day, they're like, I want this for my kids. Like, this is great. No, there's no violence. There's no things. So that's when we said, you know what, we really need to break that out and have it be its own category. So that was the 5th category. So it's 20% in each category. Yeah. That's what we're starting out with. And so kids and edutainment, we announced Sesame Street last week, and that's a big deal, brand that's been around 50 years, the leader in kids edutainment from 3 to 7-year-olds really, but 7's getting up there, but that's kind of, so those are our 5 categories.
I mean, it appeals to me, and that may have sounded like a loaded question, as if I was saying why are you doing more edutainment games, but as someone who's got like a 2-year-old daughter, she'll nearly be 3 by the time this comes out, and you'll just start. And the great thing, Chris, too, which is very unique for you mentioned your 3-year-old daughter. Like the games we're doing with Sesame Street, you're going to be able, they're all kind of cooperative as well. So typically, if you put her on a tablet or a mobile device, it's like you give her the tablet and then she goes off and as a father, and I'm sure your wife as a mother is thinking like, gosh, we don't want to turn her into a zombie. Like we need to limit her time on this thing because, it's important that we give her a balanced life, and she goes out and plays and she reads books and she, different things. We don't want her to just become addicted to this. Right. Definitely.
And so what we've done is with the Sesame Street games, she's learning her ABCs, she's learning numbers, she's learning colors, she's learning shapes, but you can pick up a controller as well. Because remember, every system comes with 2 controllers. The first video game machine in 30 years that has come with 2 separate controllers. The last one was the Super Nintendo in 1990. Some people will say, well, the Switch comes with 2. Yeah, if you take one controller and split it apart, you get 2 controllers. But I'm talking about 2 fully functioning controllers. First system in 30 years. So you or your wife or can pick up a controller and you can play along with, Cookie Monster is stirring the mix. Look, stir it with me, and you're both stirring the cookie, and add 2 cups of sugar. That's 2, 1, 2. And if she's having a hard time, you can say, oh no, look, see, do it with mom. Do it with mama. Here you go. Boom. And so incorporating the gyroscope and the accelerometer for some movement, incorporating every game couch, you'll be able to show and play with them.
Yeah.
Man, that's something special. And again, that this doesn't offer.
Yeah. It definitely appeals to me. I mean, the hardest game I play just now, everyone talks about Dark Souls and the likes. The hardest game I play just now is trying to find a app on the App Store that doesn't have ads on it, that doesn't have even kids apps like coloring book apps have always got a strategically placed ad at the bottom somewhere where she'll touch it.
Exactly. Trying to get well, I'll tell you something that will really, really is an eye opener to tell you where mobile's at. So, the biggest Disney license ever was Frozen, right? Biggest license ever. Now go on mobile and look for Frozen and tell me what you see.
Yeah.
You see a match 3 game.
Yeah.
Now I asked Disney specifically, I said, let me ask you a question. Why do a match 3 game for Frozen? Because, Frozen's all about little kids. They're like, yeah, but but the moms are the ones spending money, right? So, and they love match 3 games. So even their Frozen game, which is the Frozen license, is totally targeted to 3 to 10-year-old girls.
Yeah.
Even that license is a freemium play to parents. There's not really, I mean, again, and there's a few things on there, but you get my point.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's funny you say Disney because I for a while I was kind of hooked on this Disney Heroes, I think it was called. It was kind of mobile match 3 type thing, but it's one of those ones where you build up a squad of 4 different characters and level them up and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this is okay. It's not too intrusive with the microtransactions. And then one day it was Mickey Mouse's anniversary for whatever year it was. I said, let's celebrate Mickey's birthday. If you can buy him now for $59.99.
Oh,
and that was this is a kid's game. Come on. So yeah, I
Chris,
I definitely get it.
we've had 2. We did we do a lot of focus group tests. We did before COVID. We did a lot like in person, these focus groups.
Yeah.
And I remember one in January, and there were about 20. We do different ones. Like some we do we'll have 20 moms in a room, and then we'll do with 20 kids between certain ages. Then we'll do 20 teenagers, and then we'll do 20 dads, and then we'll do 20 single guys. And we'll do whatever, so we all have these things. And I remember the one with the moms. There were about 20 moms in the room, and we were talking about, we don't have microtransactions or in-app purchases, no loot boxes, none of that stuff. And one mom raised her hand and she says, can I tell you, you just sold a unit just based on that. She says, my kid has a Nintendo Switch. I bought him a Nintendo Switch, and he's 7 years old, and that was the machine to get him. When I asked people what system do I get my child, that Xbox and PlayStation looks a little too harsh. No, get him the Switch. Everyone said Nintendo. And she says, and he racked up $600 on a game. And when she contacted Nintendo and said, hey, look, this happened. I need to restrict this, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't even aware. Nintendo wouldn't give her her money back. And a second mom raised their hand and said, my kid did $400 last month. And I freaked out. We freaked out in this. So it is interesting. There is that. And and it's easy to say, well, look, parents should parent. They should know. They should put on those parental controls. Yeah, but with everything else, as a father, you're starting to think about it now. Well, geez, I got to limit my cable. I have to limit my internet. I have to limit my phone. I have to limit my tablet. I'm going to have to hook her up with a special account on maybe it's Nickelodeon or Disney Plus. Even Disney Plus, I have stuff on there I don't want her to see. I'm going to have to figure that out. I'm going to have to set this on my Switch. I'm going to have to set this on my... But wouldn't it be great if there was one thing you didn't have to worry about, right? You didn't even have to worry about it. You knew that whatever she did, she would never fall into that trap, and you didn't have to worry about it. So it's a unique it's a unique approach to the video game industry. But at this point, Chris, I almost feel like a responsibility a little bit that, you know, the games are getting a little too realistic for me,
much.
you know, like in regards to the blood and the gut. And again, I'm not against that. And I'm not against censorship. I'm not, again, you know, my history, you can look on YouTube right now, look at the TED Talk I do, Google or you know, go on YouTube and search Tallarico TED Talk, right? And you'll see I did a 17-minute talk 10 years ago about, do video games really cause violence, and is it, you know, blah blah blah. So I've been a very proponent of, you know, game makers in the game industry, like any industry, should be able, whether it's literature or music or whatever your art is, movies, you should be able to make whatever you want to make, as long as there's a system in place where, you know, kids don't get exposed to something they shouldn't to. But I'm all for people making whatever they want, right? And so I'm not against that. But what I'm saying is that I'm, you know, there isn't a place, again, I see this huge gaping hole where there isn't a place where people can just be 100% safe. You know, and that's what we want to create. We want to be responsible and say, because remember, Chris, when me and you were growing up, and I'm a little older than you, I know, but there was nothing, you know, we didn't have this garbage around that we need to, our parents didn't need to worry about me seeing something, you know, that I had questions about on Pac-Man, you know, or, you know, and again, even in the late 80s and early 90s, like, remember the worst thing ever was like, oh my God, the red blood and the red digitized, you know, pixel blood in Mortal Kombat. We need to change that to be green in Germany or whatever, you know? So, you know, that was the worst of the worst back then.
Yeah.
But it's a lot worse now.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, it's extremely graphic now. And again, I'm like you, I've got no issue with it. I'm like, grew up as a massive horror movie fan and stuff, so I get it. I'm not against it if I'm in favor of it, but I've got shelves full of horror movies now that I'm looking at and I'm going, I'm probably never going to watch those. Probably not for another 20 years because
yeah, no, you change, right? As you grow older, you change too. You
know. So obviously kids are covered, families are covered, but what about the very old people like us?
Yeah.
Like in terms of the original Intellivision games, obviously you're getting these kind of remake type things coming. Are there any plans at any point to bring the original versions? Yeah.
Absolutely. And they really, I would say the ones that we'll call them, lack of a better term, seniors, let's say, or, you know, the 55 older, 60 and over or whatever, grandparents, let's just call them grandparents. That's a better term. Right. And the categories that they will enjoy are the casual, the card games, the dice games, the board games, and those recreational sports, right? So look, you know, I'm not drinking my old Kool-Aid over here. I don't think that grandpa's going to like get into like Astro Smash and like, you know, and Night Stalker. Don't get me wrong. You know, I'm not a fool, but, you know, will they, you know, one of the things that tests off the charts is we have one of the pack-in games is the simple dice game Farkle, right? It's based around Yahtzee. Well, it's Yahtzee-ish. But what happens is, because everybody has a controller with a screen on it, and remember, you can hook up to 8 mobile devices, you know, with our system as well. And they don't really work for the action games, but they do work for something like I'm about to explain, the word casual games, word games, stuff like that. But so imagine what happens now. Again, let's say you're a grandparent and you're playing a dice game, and the dice, your controller shakes because the dice fall down onto your screen, like you're holding a cup of dice and you're seeing through it, and then you start to shake it. And again, the controller's vibrating and you're hearing the dice sounds come out of the controller, like the click, 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 like this. And then it's your turn and you throw the dice up and you watch them throw out of your cup into the screen. just that little tiny thing, by the way, that no other video game system is capable of doing, right? I mean, can't do that on the Switch,
Yeah.
And just that little thing is like a massive wow factor to grandparents in our research. And I'll tell you the other thing, cards. Having cards. So playing a game like spades, let's say, right? A simple game like spades or poker or whatever, the ability to hide your cards, and everybody has their own cards, and all you need to do is touch or flick, and there's a main screen. So everybody has, just that alone, Chris, is such a showstopper for those types of folks. And again, where we had the Nintendo Wii had bowling, we have cornhole. Like, and again, this is the fastest growing professional sport in the world right now. It's huge in the US, ESPN tournaments. It's crazy. Professional cornhole players, they're trying to get in the Olympics. I mean, it's insanity. But using the motion controls in such a simple game where you're taking the bag, you can feel, you see your hand on screen as you're moving, and then you make the motion and you let go and you see the thing, and we have incredible dynamics on the bag as it's turning through we spent so much time trying to get the physics of the bag correct, and when it hits the board, and does it slide the right way, and all these things. So these are the types of things that we're finding that seniors really love. And we also have a kind of a brain game as well, that and things like crossword puzzles and bingo and those types of things too, and golf. Those are the things that the older folks are really going to, I think, attach on to.
I'll only ask a couple more because I don't want to keep you too long, because we must be busy. But in terms of the 70s and 80s era Intellivision games, presumably you would still have the rights to some of those. Will those kind of appear at some point in their original forms rather than?
We are going to do that eventually.
Eventually, yes.
And the reason we don't want to do it right out of the gate, Chris, is because we know that people...
But they can be intimidating. Even though the basics, they're fairly simplistic games now, presumably... compared to something with motion controls or something that presumably it's more intimidating than...
And not only that too, but we really don't want to confuse people as it's because if people see it and they see those old, and they might just think
that's what it looks like.
Oh, it's like an NES Mini or whatever, or it's like they have all these systems now that have that are retro remakes or whatever of the original. So we don't want people to think that this Intellivision is just some kind of flashback unit, that you'd spend $40 on or $50 on. So we need to be really careful. We want to because already people are confusing it and going, oh, it's Intellivision, so it's some retro console. It's like, no, we have retro sensibilities. But it's not. It's again.
It's not just an emulation system. It's not.
I like to explain it as, look, it's like the Wii 15 years later. Better technology, but more focus on families and people getting together. And all the games are under $10, and we're the same price as the Wii was 15 years ago. Plus you get 2 controllers, plus you get 6 full games, not just 1.
I feel like you're going to say, and that's not all.
And then, but wait, there's more. You also get family friendly. You don't have to worry about violence. And wait, there's more. We have physical media. You can connect your cell phone.
Set of stainless steel knives.
Right?
Obviously, the internet is the internet, and you're always going to get harsh people online. As we both well know. And
I like how you slipped that in. Good job.
But obviously you've got some people writing the Amico off already without having seen it, without touching it. And you're even getting kind of larger gaming sites not covering it, and then making digs saying this is a thing you've never heard of, and say, well, no shit,
Yeah,
you're not
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about
After
it.
they never cover it themselves.
Yeah. So
and then they say no one's heard of it. Yeah.
So for you, in terms of obviously over history, we've seen systems promise things and then fail, like the Ouya and stuff, and
3DO,
Show Boy and stuff.
Yeah.
For you, what does success look like?
Yes, that's a great question, Chris. I'm glad you asked, because here's one thing to remember, right? Remember 6 months before the Wii came out?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Nintendo's stupid. They lost their mind. Again, this is the hardcore gamers, right? What? This is stupid. This is dumb. What a dumb idea. Motion controls, people hate that. Well, the Wii is the number one, or it was the biggest selling Nintendo product, home console at the time. It was number 3, 102 million units sold. It was the third biggest console of all time when it came out. Now it's number 4 because the PlayStation 4 recently passed it. But wait, Chris, hold on. Do you remember when the Switch came out? Do you remember 6 months before the Switch came out? What was there? Oh my God, Nintendo's stupid. They lost their mind. You know what? They should just be a publisher. They're going to be getting out of the hardware system, because they're making the biggest mistake and blah, 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 blah. Chris, do you remember when the Xbox came out? Do you remember 6 months before the Xbox came? Bill Gates and his stupid spreadsheet company, screw that. They don't know about games. They don't know about entertainment. This stupid Xbox, blah, blah, blah. Do you remember all that, Chris?
Yes,
right?
Very much so.
So for me, look, you want to know what would worry the hell out of me? What would worry the hell out of me would be if no one talked about it because they didn't care. Like if they were like, who even cares? Like, I don't even care. The fact that we have haters, the fact that we have negativity should end. Now, there's other consoles out there, like you can say even Google Stadia or the Atari VCS, where it's overwhelmingly everything is negative, right? If that was the case, and Ouya was the same, if that was the case, I might be like, but the reality is that the overwhelming majority of people love it. Yeah. So far, and they haven't most haven't played it. And the haters are there, very passionate about hating it and dismissing it before ever having tried it. Yeah. So that is a very, very good sign. If we didn't have lovers and haters, if we just had haters, then I'd be, or if no one was talking about it, then I would be worried. Yeah, because it would just come and go. Yeah, exactly. The fact that people are so passionate about hating it tells me we're on to something big. Yeah. Right? Because if they didn't care and they weren't interested, then they wouldn't care. Then they wouldn't care, right? And so that's the really interesting thing and fun thing, I think, for us. And by the way, look, the system isn't made for hardcore gamers. That's not our target audience. Isn't Kotaku. It's not IGN. It's not Polygon. It's not Reset Era. It's not 4chan. Those people who are going to be right. The people who are our target audience, Chris, they don't even know we exist yet. Those average folks, maybe they're, maybe they have a kid or two. They don't have PlayStations, Xboxes. Again, maybe they play a little bit on their mobile device. Maybe they have young kids. Just in the US alone, there's 60 million households that have children below the age of 7. We've never seen that ever before in the history of the universe. And in Europe, there's another, what is it? No, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. There's 30 million households in the US and another, I think, 30 million in Europe. Yeah. Again, you're one of them, right? You're in that demographic because, millennials and even Gen Xers like myself, we had kids later. Like our parents had us when we were like that, when they were like 23, 25 years old, right?
Mm.
The norm now is you have your first child when you're in your 30s, right? And some of us in our 40s or 50s even, right?
Yeah.
And so we've seen this massive thing. And again, our timing is going to be perfect with those types of families and people. And again, we have so again, do I mind that hardcore gamers rip this to shreds? It's not for them. It's like asking somebody who loves heavy metal to review a country music album. You know?
I mean, also, if I can get on my soapbox for a minute here, like the term, in terms of the term hardcore gamer, I think a lot of people attribute that to themselves, and it maybe shouldn't be, because I would consider myself fairly hardcore gamer. Like I've been gaming since I was 4. I'm now late 30s. I've been playing games my entire life, and full disclosure for anyone who's listening, I've pre-ordered this thing. I'm not.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a founder's edition. Yeah. So it's not like I'm just getting you on just for the sake of getting someone on. I'm genuinely interested in this thing, and people can. People may be aware of the history I've had, but people may also want to like look back through my Twitter history and find that for the past year or so, I've been talking about Amico, saying, watch this thing, this could be interesting. So yeah, I think I would. I take your point that the hardcore gamers probably aren't interested in it, but I would also argue that there's probably a subsection of the hardcore gamers who aren't so divisive that they're open-minded enough to give this a try.
Absolutely, and really, we should probably add another word into there. Say the elitist hardcore gamers.
Yeah,
you know, like the
hardcore gamers.
Because I feel, and you probably feel the same way. In order to really to consider yourself a real hardcore gamer, don't you really need to like love all the systems? Like I love Nintendo for certain reasons.
Yeah.
I'm more of a PlayStation fanboy myself over Xbox, but I like my Xbox Live stuff for certain reasons. I love playing games on PC. I love playing games on mobile, right?
Yeah,
so it's like I consider myself somebody who loves it all for different reasons.
Exactly.
I consume all of it, right? But there is definite factions. I hate Xbox because of this. I hate Nintendo because of this. Sony is a big corporation. I hate them. You know, and it's just like, man, you know, I don't know. And so, but you're absolutely correct, 100%, Chris. Look, when I say hardcores aren't our target audience, what I'm really saying is that isn't the target audience that we're going to rely on.
Yeah.
And market to out of the gate.
Yeah.
Do I think that hardcore gamers, when they try our system, are going to love it and want one? Absolutely 100%. They just don't know it yet, right? And it's not going to replace their PlayStation 5 or their Series X.
Not. Yeah.
But it might be their second or third machine.
Yeah.
That when their non-gamer friends come over, or when they start, then they bust it out and it's like the party drinking game, system or whatever, you never know. Right.
Yeah.
So I do think there is stuff on them that they will love as well. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And you can't tell somebody that. Like I can't go out saying, oh, hardcore gamers, I'm going to rely on you and trust me, you're going to love it. I'm not going to say that now. Just let it happen naturally.
Yeah.
Let them play it. And by the way, it's not for everyone. You know, if you are into super realistic graphics and that type of stuff, that's not our system. We don't care about graphics as much as we do gameplay. Gameplay and fun, that's our main objective. By the way, isn't that the way video games should be? For the people who are like, oh, those games look like crap.
Yeah.
Those games look like mobile games. Okay, well, mobile dominates the video game industry. So thank you for the compliment. I guess we're doing our job right because our graphics aren't overly complex. They're not, a million things, So again, I take that as compliments. But if people are so much about graphics as opposed to fun and gameplay, then yeah, the system's not going to be for them, and that's fine. That's no worries, no harm done, you know.
Yeah.
But for people to say they hate it before they've played it, that's a little ridiculous, you know.
Agreed. Well, I think we'll leave it there because I've
Cool.
taken up a lot of your time. I'm really curious to see where this goes. I'm excited for it. I do agree that there's a need in the market for this. You only need to look at the Avengers game and the stuff that's going on with that, with like microtransactions all over the place and
Crazy,
exclusive characters on certain systems and exclusive skins if you own.
The loot boxes are the ones that bug me.
If you're with Verizon, you get certain skins, and if you although anyone who's been to a Video Games Live show will already know that Square Enix are quite funny when it comes to licensing things. So hopefully we will be talking again a year from now about how big a success the Amico has been in its first few months. And I look forward to kind of covering it a bit more.
I look forward to that day, Chris.
Nice one. Cheers, Tommy. Thank you very much for coming on and having a chat with me.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Tommy Tallarico, president of Intellivision, a salesman of the highest order. Hopefully that helped kind of fill in a few blanks about what Amico is going to do. I hope you kind of enjoyed the wee look at the controller. I thought it was quite cool. Like I said in the interview, I've got one pre-ordered, so you can expect a review nearer the time. And hopefully it will fill a niche, which is kind of looks like it's needing to be filled. I mean, I wasn't bullshitting them in that interview. Like I am a parent. It gets to the point that like Serena's in a couple of years' time is going to be old enough to play games, hopefully, and I'm getting increasingly concerned about the landscape of modern gaming, whether it's microtransactions or loot boxes or ad placement or what have you. So if I actively, as much as I will review this thing obviously subjectively, you can't review objectively, but as long as as much as I'm going to review it fairly, I should say, when it comes out and point out its any issues or criticisms, I would be lying if I said I didn't want it to succeed, because I think there's a real need for a gaming system for children and families that doesn't have any of the trappings that modern gaming has. So it remains to be seen how well it does. It may be another Ouya and die on its arse, or it may well be the next Wii, or most likely it'll probably fall somewhere in the middle. It just depends on how far down the scale it'll land. So we'll see. And this time in maybe 5-6 months time, we'll be able to finally look at it and see what happens. But there you go. That was a chat. Hopefully it helped fill in some blanks, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I say, this won't always be a video podcast, so probably the next one will be an audio only one again. So if you liked what you saw video wise, there'll be more videos coming, so do your usual YouTube like and subscribe stuff. If you were just listening to the audio one, or you want to listen to more audio ones, like I say, go to tiredoldhack.com or search for Tired Old Hack in your podcast software of choice, and you'll be able to subscribe there and hear all the past ones and kind of check out the future ones to come. Thank you very much for watching / listening, and I'll catch you on the flip-flop further down the road. Cheers guys, bye bye.